and you're ready to go. Have a good session.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the last session of PKC 2021. And my name is Eden, and we are co-chair this session with Michaeli Ciampi. And I think this session consists of 4 talks on zero-knowledge proof. And the first talk is on publicly accountable zero-knowledge and small shuffle arguments by Niels Fleischhack and Mark Simkin. And the speaker is Niels. Niels, please.
Yeah, hi. Should I start? Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me share my screen. Okay, so I'm talking about publicly accountable zero-knowledge and small shuffle arguments. And I'm Niels Fleischhacker, and this is joint work with Mark Simkin. So we're talking about shuffle arguments. So what is a shuffle argument? If you consider that you have a list or a vector of commitments, and these commitments are re-randomizable, then we can re-randomize those, all of those commitments, and then permute them randomly. And this results in a vector v prime. And we can also write this as some procedure that basically does this shuffling, given randomness R and a permutation P. And the basic idea is that we can get a super simple shuffle argument, which is basically an argument that indeed this v prime is a shuffling of v by just splitting up the original shuffle into 2 shuffles, such that after applying both shuffles, you end up at the same v prime. And if we do that, then we can get a super simple sigma protocol, basically, where in the first round, the prover will just send this intermediate vector. The verifier will request that one of the 2 shuffles is opened. And once one of those shuffles is opened, the verifier can basically recompute this intermediate vector, either from the front or from the back. This assumes that the commitment scheme has some special properties for re-randomization, but most commitment schemes that are re-randomized will have those. And if you can do that, then this is a very nice shuffle argument. And you can make the shuffle argument a bit better by lowering the soundness error from 1/2 to 1/t by splitting up the shuffle not into 2 shuffles, but into t shuffles. Okay, and this is a very nice shuffle argument. This is fully zero knowledge. This is sound. It's actually a proof, not just an argument. However, it has an issue that the first round message and the third message, both prover messages, are very large. They scale with the length of the vector that we have as an input. And generally, we want our shuffle arguments to be short, ideally independent of the size of the vector that we are shuffling. Now, for the first message, this is easily achieved. We can just hash all of those intermediate vectors. And now this protocol is only an argument and not a proof anymore, but generally we're fine with that. But the last message is a bigger problem because this is basically the randomness and the permutation. And this inherently means that this must be as large as the length of the vector we're shuffling. So the question is, given this protocol, how could we possibly compress those values? And we can imagine that basically what these values are just randomness for the re-randomization of a commitment scheme and a random permutation. So basically, these are just random values. So why don't we replace them with pseudo-random values? So we just replace those with the output of a PRG. And now we only need to send the seeds for the PRG, which can be independent of the length of the vector. And even better, we could replace the output of the PRG with the output of a punctual PRF. Now, if we do that, that means that if we only need to send the punctured key, and that means if we, for example, instantiate this with a GGM, then the communication cost of this complete protocol only scales logarithmically in t and is independent of the length of the vector b. But there is an issue with this, because if we have some arbitrary vectors v and v prime, then the probability that it will be possible to actually split up the shuffle into t such pseudorandom shuffles is actually negligible. You generally can't do that. But because this is so nice, we figured out that, well, usually you don't actually have to prove an arbitrary shuffle. In most applications of a shuffle argument, what you have is that you shuffle something at random or pseudo-randomly, and then you want to prove that what I shuffled at random is actually a shuffling of the original list. And so we can define a new notion of arguments, which we call arguments for partially fixed statements, where basically the prover is split into two. In the first phase, the prover only gets the initial list of commitments, and then the prover gets to choose the final list of commitments V prime, together with some auxiliary information, which in this case will basically just be this puncturable PRF key. And after that, you run the protocol with the verifier, where the prover proves to the verifier that indeed this V prime is a shuffling of V. And with this new definition, basically our construction works, and we can get a very nice shuffle argument. However, at this point, I have to address the elephant in the room, which is, with this definition, we no longer can do sequential repetition, because if we sequentially repeat the protocol, the prover will choose a new statement every time the proof is redone, which means that we cannot reduce the soundness error through sequential repetition. And this means that our protocol has a constant soundness error, which is a problem in probably most applications. And we can't really change anything about that. This soundness error is inherent. However, we can somewhat mitigate the problems that a constant soundness error causes. And this is where we introduce public accountability for zero-knowledge arguments. Public accountability means that...
Sorry. Yes. So in 1 minute, we should conclude.
Yes, I'm basically done.
Okay.
The public accountability means that the verifier can basically prove to a judge when the prover cheated, but he cannot prove it if the prover was honest. And with this, basically, we get a shuffle argument that where the communication size is comparable to that of a snark from much better assumptions, albeit with a constant soundness error, which we can mitigate somewhat with accountability and interaction. Thank you.
Okay, any questions? So here, I just have a question to you. I noticed that you choose the T permutations and then do T times shuffles, right? And I just wonder, in practice, how large T should be?
So the thing is that the computation scales linearly with T, so you have to keep that in mind. Because basically what the prover needs to do is he needs to actually compute all of those shuffles. So yeah, you should not choose T too large.
Yes.
But I mean, choosing T, say, as 100 or something would be fine, which basically means that you get a soundness error of 1/100.
Okay.
But it depends on the application, basically, what kind of soundness error you can live with, because it will always be a constant soundness error.
Okay. Any other questions? So if no other questions, let's just proceed to next talk. Mikhail, please.
Yep. So the next talk is on single-to-multi-theorem transformations for non-interactive statistical zero knowledge. This is a work of Mark Fischling and Felix Rochberg, and Felix will give the talk. So Felix, if you're ready, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. I'm presenting single-to-multi-theorem transformations for non-interactive statistical zero knowledge, and this is joint work with Mark Fischling. First, let me remind you what a non-interactive zero-knowledge argument is. So it consists of a prover and the verifier, and the prover wants to convince the verifier that a statement X is indeed in the language L. Because this is non-interactive, the prover may only send one message to the verifier. However, both parties have access to a common random string, which must not be influenced by either party. There are two non-interactive zero-knowledge variants. First, non-interactive zero-knowledge proofs, where soundness holds against unbounded malicious provers. However, zero-knowledge is only computational. And non-interactive statistical zero-knowledge arguments, where this soundness only holds against bounded provers, but we have statistical zero-knowledge. We will concentrate on the second one. Further, our common random string can be either uniformly random or according to some distribution, in which case we call it a common reference string. Arguably, it's harder to generate a common reference string which is not influenced by either party, so we concentrate here on the first one. Unfortunately, many constructions can't reuse the common random string or only for a fixed polynomial number of times. We call these single theorem. In contrast, multi-theorem arguments can reuse the common random string for any polynomial number of arguments. Our contributions are twofold. First, we give a more fine-grained analysis of soundness for non-interactive statistical zero-knowledge arguments. And second, we give two transformations from single to multi-theorem for non-interactive statistical zero-knowledge arguments, one assuming one-way permutations and one assuming learning with errors. First, let me talk about soundness. So soundness captures the property that a malicious prover should not be able to convince the verifier for an X that is not in the language L. And here the prover gets to choose X. Commonly, there are two types, depending on when the malicious prover chooses X. For non-adaptive soundness, the prover must decide before seeing the common random string, while for adaptive soundness, the prover can decide after seeing the common random string. However, there is another dimension which often goes unnoticed, how to measure the success for the malicious prover. Clearly, the verifier should deny if X is not an L. However, it's not quite clear how to measure that membership requirement. So we could disallow the malicious prover to output an X and L at all. We call this exclusive soundness. Or we allow it, but punish the prover for it. That one we call penalizing soundness. In total, we get 5 different definitions, all combinations of adaptive and non-adaptive, and exclusive and penalizing, plus a non-uniform variant that only exists for non-adaptive soundness. Adaptive soundness always implies non-adaptive soundness, and penalizing soundness always implies exclusive soundness. Therefore, adaptive penalizing soundness is the strongest definition here. However, Pass showed in 2016 that there exists no black box construction of adaptive penalizing sound non-interactive statistical zero-knowledge arguments from hard primitives. Further, we show in our paper that for non-uniform provers, all non-adaptive definitions are equivalent. Therefore, adaptive exclusive is probably the strongest notion achievable here. Further, adaptive exclusive indeed implies a further definition called adaptive culpable, which was shown to suffice for many applications, which is why we think reaching adaptive exclusive soundness is indeed meaningful. So our second contributions are 2 transformations from non-interactive statistical zero-knowledge arguments from single to multi-theorem. Both work in the common random string model, and both retain adaptive exclusive soundness. For both, the idea is based on the construction by Feige, Lapido, and Shamir, who did this for non-interactive zero-knowledge proofs, but a dual version of this. However, I don't have time right now to talk more about this. So our first construction uses one-way permutations, and we can even extend this to retain perfect zero knowledge. However, then the simulator has to run in expected polynomial time. And the second one is based on the hardness of learning with errors. This fits in nicely with the recent construction of Picard and Xiaoyan, who built a single theorem, non-interactive statistical zero knowledge argument from plain LVE. Here you see a comparison to a few other works. You can see that only few of them work on the common random string model, and we're the first one in the common random string model and to retain adaptive exclusive soundness. Yeah, so if you want to learn more, check out our YouTube video, and you can find our paper on ePrint. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Felix. This was nice. So if there are questions, please post them on the chat, and I'll be happy to forward it to Felix. In the meantime, maybe I can ask a question.
Sure.
So do you have a general view of applications where adaptive exclusive soundness could be helpful? Like in general, what's the general paradigm where you know this notion can be useful?
So mainly this is via the adaptive culpable soundness, which was shown by Code et al. I don't have an example at the back of my mind right now, but I think they gave multiple applications in their paper.
Okay. Okay. I think that's fine. Let's see if there are questions on it.
So it can be used for correctness proofs for shuffles or e-voting.
For e-voting, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I will not ask further. I mean, I don't want to take more of your time. So if there are no other questions, I think we can go to the next speaker.
Okay,
yeah.
could you please share my screen, because this seems not to work for me.
Okay, the next talk is compact zero knowledge proofs for threshold ECCDSA with the trustless setup by Zihong Handong Cui, Xiangxie. The speaker is Zihong Yan. Zihong, please.
Yes. Hi. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see.
Okay, thank you. All right. Hi.
Can you put it in presentation mode?
Is that the?
Sorry, can you put it in full screen?
Present. Yeah.
Yes.
I think.
Perfect.
Yes, it's okay.
Okay, thank you. All right. Today, my name is Qian Yun, and this paper, Compact Zero Knowledge Proof for Factual ECCDSA with Trustless Setup, is joint work with Handong Cui and Xiang Xie. So firstly, what is factual signature? So this is a signature scheme that shares the signing ability to n parties, such that if the attacker can attack and get the shares of T or fewer user shares, they cannot generate a valid signature. So you need T plus 1 or more users to generate a valid signature. And why we consider factual ECCDSA? Because ECCDSA is widely used in blockchain, and factual ECCDSA is useful in a lot of applications like hot wallets for crypto exchange and so on. But theoretically, to do factual ECCDSA is not that easy. It is a little bit more difficult than factual Schnorr signature because the ECCDSA structure is a little bit non-linear. So make it factual is a little bit difficult. And it usually involves some kind of additive homomorphic encryption and zero knowledge proof. And some of the best factual ECCDSA signature the major bottleneck of the scheme is on the zero knowledge proof there. So we want to improve the efficiency of the zero knowledge proof used there, and then to bring a good boost in performance in both two-party ECDSA as well as factual ECDSA. So this is one example from the paper or from PKC last year on factual ECDSA. So you can see that in this protocol, they use quite a lot of zero knowledge proof for certain relation. Like this one is a relation in discrete logarithm, while at the bottom, they use a relation on a zero knowledge proof for proving some kind of ciphertext is well-founded. So these are the major bottleneck for in terms of computation as well as bandwidth. So according to the state-of-the-art schemes, they use a new additive homomorphic encryption called the CL encryption, which is based on some group called the HSM group, where the hard subgroup membership assumption holds. So I will not go into the details of its setup because of the time limit, but I just want to point out that in this group, we have a generator G, which is equal to F times GQ. So the F belongs to the generator of a subgroup of G, where in this subgroup, the discrete logarithm problem is easy to solve. So it is easy to solve the discrete log of F to the power X and get X instead. So this is the property you need to remember. And in the CL encryption, they make use of this property and they generate a ciphertext, which is quite similar to a algorithm encryption, but we can get the original message back because the discrete log in the base F is easy to solve. So so what we need to do is actually doing the zero knowledge proof for this relation. So the technical difficulty is to do this efficient zero knowledge proof for this HSM group for discrete log, and because it is difficult because it is an unknown order group. So working on this discrete logarithm is not a simple task, and we also want to give a CK proof for the well-foundedness of a CL ciphertext. So the existing work in Crypto 19, they use a zero knowledge proof with a single bit challenge to do this discrete log problem. So it is rather inefficient. So in PKC last year, they tackled the discrete log problem by some trick called the LCM trick, and to reduce the repetition by 10 times. But still, if you want to have a soundness of 2 to the 80, then you still need to run the CK proof for 8 times. So it is rather inefficient. And there are some other problems for the PKC last year. For example, they need a random group generator, and we need some further interaction to generate a random group generator without the attack from the adversary. And actually, in this paper, the major contribution is to give a new CK proof for these two relations, the discrete log and the ciphertext relation. So firstly, let's consider this discrete log relation. So we get a first attempt to solve this problem. Actually, it's based on some assumption used in a previous paper. And then in this CK proof, the verifier first send a random prime L there, and the prover tried to find the secret is X, and then they will try to factorize it and then get the quotient Q prime and the remainder R. And then the prover will send the Q, capital Q is equal to G to the Q prime and the remainder R to the verifier. And the verifier just simply check it, Q to the L times G to the L is equal to W or not. But this simple CK proof is not secure. You can refer to my presentation in YouTube for the attack. But the attack will show that if the witness is in this form, G to the X, F to the Y, so we have some subgroup element appended there, then it can break this simple construction. So we need something to eliminate this subgroup F element. So our solution is to use an extra round of challenge to eliminate the element of this order Q in W. So we need to run another round of extra round of zero knowledge proof. But in that particular run, the prime number, we use the prime number Q there to eliminate the, all the order Q element there. And then for the step 4 to 6 is the original protocol from the algorithm 1. So we combine these two parts together. We are able to give a complete zero knowledge proof in the generic group model. And we also show that it is secure against the previous attack. So the advantage of this protocol is that it is run for one time only. We already achieved the high level of soundness error as compared to the previous works. And as a result, we don't need to run the CK proof for many, many times. So we save a lot in terms of both bandwidth as well as computation as well. So it is much, much shorter than the Crypto 19 paper as well as the PKC paper last year with the same level of soundness. And as compared to previous work, we use slightly different assumptions. And in the PKC paper last year, actually the CK proof is not a direct DL relation, but they prove it in a modified relation. So it's changed a bit. While on the other hand, the weakness of this paper is that we use a generic group model, while the previous paper does not need that. So it is some kind of a trade-off. And then equipped with our DL relation CK proof, then it is not very difficult to do the CK proof for the well-foundedness of a ciphertext because it is quite similar to multiple DL relations. So we can construct similarly. And again, I skip the details here in this presentation. And you can refer to the full paper for the construction, but it is quite similar. It is also a 6-round protocol like this one. And so let's look at the communication size. You can see that when you just directly compare with previous works, our scheme is not the best in terms of communication size. But remember that in the PKC 20 paper last year, they have a requirement that they need a randomized group generator. And again, they need some further overhead in generating that. And eventually, when it put into the threshold or two-party ECDSA, they will become a much larger than our scheme. So this is why our scheme will outperform them when it is used in threshold or two-party ECDSA. So we just give a very brief comparison when we put our scheme into two-party and threshold ECDSA. And we mainly use the two-party ECDSA protocol in Crypto 19, and we changed the relation a bit to this one in order to satisfy their scheme. And this is the final comparison in terms of communication. So we save a lot in terms of the key generation part. And in terms of running time, we are the best when we compare in terms of both key generation running time as well as signing time. So we are the best in when compared to the previous works. And for threshold ECDSA, we propose two schemes which changes the CK proof in different part of the paper. So I will leave the details about the difference between scheme 1 and scheme 2 in the paper. But we can see that this table gives you a brief overview of which part performs better. So the part with red rectangle is the part that is better than the other schemes. So we can see that our scheme 1 is better in terms of key generation and less assumption used, while our scheme 2 is better in terms of signing time. And the key generation time is outperformed the previous work as well. And we can see this is the actual comparison when we setting the threshold, TN threshold to 1, 3, 2, 4, and 2, 5. So we are much better in terms of communication size, running time, and also the same when we are comparing in different perspectives. So to conclude, this paper proposed a very compact zero-knowledge proof for the discrete log relation, as well as the for the well-foundedness of a CL ciphertext. And when applied to two-party and threshold ECDSA, it can significantly improve the performance in terms of bandwidth as well as the running time. So that's the end of my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions from you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the nice talk. And any questions? You may ask questions in Zoom. Okay, in the meantime, I want to ask you a simple question. I think in your zero-knowledge construction for the DL relation, that protocol consists of two subprotocols, right?
Yeah.
Can we run the two subprotocols in parallel?
Actually, it's I think it is we'll have a little bit problem because in the security proof, when I do the rewind, I actually need the information from the previous one to get the security proof to go through. So I cannot do it in parallel.
Oh, okay, I see. Just for the reason of security proof.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, I see. Any other questions? Okay, if no, let's move to the next talk.
Okay. So the next talk is on publicly verifiable zero knowledge from collapsing blockchains of Alessandra Scafuro, Luisa Siniscalchi, and Ivan Visconti. And Luisa will have the honor to present the last talk of this conference. Luisa, are you ready?
Yeah, one second. Can you see my screen?
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
Please, go ahead.
So, hi everyone. This is a joint work with Alessandra Scafuro and Ivan Visconti, and today I'm gonna talk about publicly verifiable zero knowledge from collapsing blockchain. So, first of all, what is a zero knowledge proof? Well, it's a protocol between a prover and a verifier where the prover wants to prove that some statement is true to the verifier. Now, if this proof is publicly verifiable, means that one proof can convince many verifiers. And we are going to ask that this proof should be sound and zero knowledge. Soundness means that a malicious prover cannot convince an honest verifier of a statement that is not true. While a zero knowledge proof, a zero knowledge property ensures that nothing else is revealed except that the statement is true. If a proof is publicly verifiable, it's especially useful in a context of a blockchain because one can put this proof on the blockchain and everyone just looking at the proof can verify that, can be convinced that the statement is true. So publicly verifiable proofs are important, and example of that can be non-interactive zero knowledge, where there is just one message from the prover to the verifier. But they usually come at a cost that are a heuristic assumption like random oracle or a trusted setup. So our question is, can we use instead something that is already running in the world like a blockchain? And in particular, the question is, can we use the blockchain and the assumption that are we making on the blockchain to construct a cryptographic protocol on top of it? In particular, a publicly verifiable zero knowledge one. So this question was answered partially by Goyal in 2017, where they constructed non-interactive zero knowledge just from proof of stake blockchain. But actually, in that type of proof, they are making some additional assumption on the blockchain. In particular, they are considering that the adversary of the blockchain cannot be corrupting player adaptively. And moreover, also there are some limitations on the behavior stakeholder. For instance, the honest stakeholder can never reveal their secret key, even if there is zero stake associated to them. So the contribution that we are making in our talk are two. So first of all, we are gonna show that when we are using the blockchain and the assumption that we are making on the blockchain to construct a cryptographic protocol on top of it, if you bound the security of your protocol to the secrets of the honest player, then there can be some subtlety that an adversary can exploit. So we define a new security notion where we are going to ask that this security should hold even when all the secrets of the honest player are revealed and all the players are corrupted. And we are calling this notion security against collapsing blockchain. And we are asking that a protocol should be zero knowledge even in this regime. So we are constructing a public, and then we are giving a construction that satisfies this security notion. And in particular, our protocol can be run on any blockchain. So we don't care about the underlying mechanism. It can be a proof of stake or a proof of work blockchain, it's okay. And as long as it satisfies some generic assumption that we make on the blockchain. So to conclude, I want to summarize the difference between our protocol and the one of Goyal and Goyal. So the protocol of Goyal and Goyal is non-interactive, which means that there is just one message to the prover, from the prover to the verifier. While our protocol is non-interactive with respect to a verifier, but the prover needs to talk with the blockchain. It's actually interacting with the blockchain and posting multiple messages to the blockchain. So this can seem a drawback because the prover is interacting multiple times with it, but actually we are posting multiple messages on the blockchain, but just the last message needs the theorem. So all the previous message can be just pre-computed and posted in the blockchain by the prover. Sorry. So moreover, as I said, our protocol can be worked on any blockchain as long as it satisfies our assumption. And so it doesn't need to be a proof of stake or a proof of work or any other type. Moreover, we are based just on one-way permutation. We require the existence of just one-way permutation, while the work of Goyal required the existence of a non-interactive WI. Finally, we are not making any restriction on how the player should use their secret key or their secrets, and our protocol remains zero knowledge even in presence of collapsing blockchain. So even when all the secrets are revealed and players are all corrupted. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a couple of minutes to take questions.
So in that case, could you give us a brief idea of how you do this?
Yeah. So basically, our assumption that we are making on the blockchain is that the blocks contain a field that is unpredictable, that contains some mean entropy. So from a point of view of even an adversary, if he's in a point on time, he cannot predict this mean entropy thing that will appear in the future in the blockchain. So this in some sense will be, and then we are just applying the LFS paradigm. So we are just proving X is in L, or I can predict these unpredictable strings. And the key tool why and so we are gonna use something that is a publicly verifiable WI, which is already secure in a context of a collapsing blockchain. And basically, this is the thing. So I am committing ahead of time to the witness for XNL. Then I am waiting that the other blocks appear in the blockchain. And then as a prover, I am computing this publicly verifiable WI where I prove this OR statement.
And you still get entropy even when all the parties are corrupt?
So the thing is that in that case, not anymore, but we are requiring that only if a proof is posted in the blockchain, just the things that are already posted on the blockchain, they should remain zero knowledge. We are not making any security when the blockchain is completely corrupted.
Thanks.
Okay, so I think that we are right on time. And so thank you very much for attending this session. I really hope you all enjoyed. And yeah, I suppose I'll leave the floor to Juan, Marcus, and Petros for the closing remark.
Right. Thanks, Michele. And so this is it, guys. It wasn't Edinburgh, but it was the best thing we could come up with. Mostly due to Kevin and Kay, who did a terrific job. And do you guys want to share? Oh, there's a puzzle solution thing coming up. Kevin?
Yeah, I'll say just a couple of words about that. I'm not showing the solution, but this gives you an idea of what the score is. It's actually rather close, and we have 3 people who've gotten all the answers, but 1 person has all the answers with the smallest number of incorrect answers. However, I'm going to let this go until the end of the social event after this, and then we'll determine a winner at the end of that. So if you look down the list, there are a couple people who could theoretically get the last answer and have fewer incorrect answers. Okay, so I'll let it go. And if people have complaints about the clues, you have to blame me, not Kay, because they're kind of obscure.
All right, thanks, Kevin. So again, thank you, Kevin and Kay, for this enormous job. We couldn't have done it without you. Thanks to all the authors that submitted papers, all the program committee members who worked really hard and did a magnificent job, and finally to general chairs who are coming up next. But that's it from me now, and I hope to see you in person next time, Japan. All right, Markov and Petros.
I'd just like to say that it's really a difficult job for Juan to do the program chair job. I think we should give him a round of applause for that.
Thank you, thank you. And I like to show off my new mic, which you complain about.
Oh yeah, it's very nice.
Very expensive mic, but it doesn't always work. Okay, thanks. General chairs.
Hi. I think before us Kay may say a few statistics about the attendance of the talks. And
yes, so compared to PKC last year, which was one of the first virtual conferences that we ran during the COVID pandemic, we actually have improved in terms of percentage of people who attend sessions versus the amount of people registered for the conference. So well done. And generally the attendance per session was hovering around, I believe, 29%, up from 23% this time last year. So that's pretty good. That's all I've got.
You're muted, Petros. Right?
Yeah, I realized. Right. Yeah. Okay. Right. So thanks all for coming. So I'll say pretty much what Juan said, but a bit longer. So we tried twice to have the PKC in Edinburgh. Unfortunately, we weren't lucky enough. So after trying 2 times and both times having a pandemic, next time we won't have it in Edinburgh, and hopefully we're not going to have a pandemic next year. Right. So I want to start with thanking many people, and mainly above all Kevin and Kay, because basically they run the conference. We are general chairs for not holding the conference in Edinburgh, but they were the real people running the show. And would like also to thank the support from ISCR, both board meetings and the PKC steering committee. and the rest organizing team, Juan, as we already said, Mark Wolf, and the Dimitris Karakostas, who was helped with the local organization till the point that we decided that it goes virtual both years. He was helping a lot and taking care of the website and other things. And of course, we want to thank the speakers because that's what was this conference about, and the moderators for making this work. And of course, the audience, because without the audience, there is no conference. Right. And finally, we want to thank for the generosity our sponsors, Input Output, Definity, and ECCDSA, which stuck with us both years, even though there was no actual conference, and there was in-person conference. There was an actual conference. Okay, so I'll give some statistics also in terms of registration, not in terms of attendance. So there were 303 registrations. 100 of those were students and 203 were not students. And you can see the distribution of different countries. So there were many people from US. Then there were many people from Europe, given the time zone was Central Eurocentric this time. I guess that was sensible. And among the European countries, you can also see Japan, and this hints where the conference will take place next year. I guess Juan already gave it. But yeah, so it's going to be in Yokohama in Japan. And here we have some dates already. So this is in the optimistic case that there will be a physical in-person conference with no other things happening. If, of course, they're planning for plan B and C, like hybrid or virtual conferences, if necessary. And the people that will run the show next year will be Junji Shikata and Yohei Watanabe, the two chairs, and Koichiro Hanaoka will be the program chair, and there are a number of people in the local organizing committee. And I guess from our side, this is it. I mean, thanks for attending this conference. And yeah, we'll see you hopefully in person in the next year. Thanks.
Thanks for the chairs. Well, thank you. It's a great job.
Thank you.
Hi.
Okay. Okay, thanks, guys.